good to be going into a final series in good shape. We never take for granted how hard the game is and how difficult it is to get yourself in a position where you can finish top four and have a really good crack at it. So we feel well prepared.
An old-fashioned percentage booster for the Cats.
All in all, if you look at the second half of our season, we feel like, we are ready to attack the final series and give it a good shake.
Don't take for granted how much it takes to get there year after year after year. Chris Scott, 14th season in charge of the Cats, 12th final series and an astounding 10th top four finish. Long serving with us on 360. Chris, great to have you back on the program. Welcome.
Good to see you guys.
For what you've had and for what you've needed to negotiate this year, how significant an achievement is it to finish top four with this group?
We're really proud of it, Gerard. We're not underestimating the achievement at all. And you only dwell on it for a really brief period because our focus is clearly on the opportunity we've got in front of us over the next month or so. But we forecast, not only at the start of this year, but probably the start of this era, however you define that, probably the last 4 or 5 years, that the competition was going to get tighter and the differences between teams and clubs was going to become even more marginal. So with that comes challenges, within games, certainly within seasons. And we've had periods where we've been going pretty well this year. We started 7-0 and then had our real challenges that we had to work through. And we think that's actually got us in a good position. We've had some problems that are much better to address in round 12 or 13 than they are going to a final series. So with all that in mind, we're feeling confident, proud of the achievement and the work that our players have put in, but mostly just excited that to give yourself the best chance you've got to finish top four. That's been historically true. It may be changing a little bit with the evenness of the comp, but we feel privileged to be in this position.
Goes without saying, you've won 4 of the last 5. You're in good form. But that's just too general of a term. If you had an opportunity to tell us, what aspects of your style of footy, ball movement, defence, forwards, what aspects of your game do you think that you've turned around from that sort of flat period during the season?
There are a few, but, we were even looking at some of our game against Port Adelaide last time, and it was a really strange game. Port started the game on fire, got a long way in front. We were poor in the first half, but came back and almost snatched it in the end. So they were good in the first half, we were good in the second half. But even in terms of our personnel, we're going to be very, very different to the team that played Port midway through the year. But that's probably what I was referring to as one of the challenges we had during the year. We thought sort of around the ball, our midfield, our contested stuff, needed tweaking, not just with personnel, but with method as well. And it's likely that, the guys that made up probably 80% of our midfield last time we played them either aren't going to be there or are going to be in different positions. So I think that's a pretty good example of sort of how we've had to work through and change things up. And we feel as if we're much better for it.
You've got a swag of players with finals experience, and then you've got, I guess, the excitement of there's a set of players who are going to see it for the first time. What will you impart, given that you all know it so well, on the few that are about to taste it for the first time? What would you impart on them about a qualifying final away from home?
Well, I think the most important thing, and this is something that I've always believed in and was conveyed to me when I was a young player, that you've got to acknowledge that finals are a little bit different. And if for no other reason, the stakes are much higher, which sort of builds pressure. But the way that we need to play shouldn't be different to the ways in which we've played, at least the ways that have worked during the season. So I'm not a huge believer of building it up to be something completely different. But we also believe that we're all different. We've got a list of 45 and 23 will take the field next Thursday night. And we don't believe in, a collective philosophy necessarily. We believe in all the individuals have got to find a way to get themselves up. So it is different for different people. Some guys would like to get really fired up around the opportunity, and some guys are a bit more process-driven. Shockingly boring answer, I know, but the young guys, I guess if I could summarise, building it up to be a bigger moment than it actually is, I think is a bit disrespectful to all the other moments they've had during the year that have got them to this point.
One of the players, you don't want to talk individually, I do. One of the players, he had a smashing game last week. Max Holmes, going back to the back flank, because I think he was one of those players early in the year. You were playing him in the midfield a bit, Chris, and I don't know how long he's been playing back flank, to be honest, but I noticed last week he was blinding coming out of the back half.
Yeah, he's a good example of one of the ways that we've changed, not just this year, but I guess we'd like to think that we've been slowly kind of rebuilding, even though no one likes to use that word, over a long period of time. And Max was part of a draft with Tanner Bruin and Ollie Henry. Sam DeConing, I think, was the year before. And they've all become really important players for us. But even sort of the way that our team plays has shifted with the different strengths of our personnel. And we have brought in quite a few guys who play in our back half who are elite runners. That hasn't always been the case for us, though. So Max is one of those. He's got blistering speed as well. But even in our forward half, guys like Shannon Neal coming in, he's got a lot of attributes as a footballer. But as an athlete, 203 centimetres and, sort of he's an, elite track and field athlete, great aerobic capacity, and it just opens up some options for us to play in a slightly different way, which has us all excited.
Would you like to see Ollie Dempsey win the Rising Star on Thursday night?
I think it'd be fantastic. I think it'd be well deserved. He's a really humble guy, Ollie, and he will acknowledge that there are a couple of really well-performed players who are ineligible, but that shouldn't change the way that he feels about the way he's gone about his footy. And I love as a coach when you have players that change the way you think about things, even subtly. And Ollie's just one of the most optimistic, happy guys you'll meet. And if he doesn't win it, I suspect he'll kind of shrug his shoulders and sort of move on with things. It's not as if I don't get the sense that he's driven by these individual things. It's just hard to take the smile off his face, even in the face of bad news. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Has Tom still got a smile on his face? Will he be playing this week?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, which is good. Tom's a pretty serious character. He's a little different to Ollie. He's a competitor in a different sense. But all the information that I've got is that he's good. So we were. I hesitate to say in the fortunate position, but we were in the position where we felt that we could be careful with Lawson Humphries and Stewie, and the feedback is that that's held them in good shape to be ready for Thursday week.
We'll have a lot of people telling us about how Port plays, Chris. From a coach's perspective, what can you tell us that you've noted about Port in, say, the last 6 weeks that you think, geez, they got that part of their game in order?
I'm not the sort of coach that generally talks about those things, Robbo. I appreciate the
I try to
question,
catch you just in a soft moment then.
I know. But what I'll say, it's not an interesting answer in my opinion, but it's the stuff that should be blindingly obvious to everyone. They, have a super talented midfield. They consider themselves really fortunate to have brought in a couple of. I was alluding to one draft a few years ago. They had won a few before that where they brought in Butters and Rosie. I think captain and vice captain now, and Horn Francis that was just sort of perfect storm for them as well. So they're really strong around the midfield, and they do everything they can, to my observation, to support that. They value the contest, and so I could go into detail in sort of what the opposite of that is, but it seems to me they know what their strengths are, and they double down on that.
And are you keeping Tom Hawkins keen and viable if needed?
Yeah, that's the plan. Tom, they're in slightly different positions, but Tom Hawkins and Cam Guthrie, we're doing everything we can, and they're working really hard to just give themselves a chance if it presents. So there will come a point where it becomes too late, but we're not at that point yet. They're working away, and there is a plan in place that that could have them available if they tick those milestones. But I think I'll put it in the category of you sort of cross that bridge when you come to it. Otherwise, you just spend so much mental and nervous energy sort of thinking about something that's impossible to forecast. When we get to the point where they start notching those milestones, then we'll sort of think about it a little bit harder. But it's definitely still on the table.
Chris, always great to have you with us. Good luck on Thursday week.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Good to talk.
Geelong coach Chris Scott with us with the Cats to face Port Adelaide.
We nearly
in
got
that
it.